I will call the, I will call the meeting for the public hearing to order. And at this time, I'll take the roll call for the public hearing. Councilperson Ginever? Councilperson Schonberg? Councilperson Becker?
Yes, sir.
Councilperson Fisher? Councilperson Bradley? Councilperson Massa? Councilperson Osher? Councilperson Pickerel. And at this time, I will turn, it is on a petition for voluntary annexation. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to our city attorney, Mr. Munier.
Thank you, Mayor. So we are here in front of the council this evening for a petition for voluntary annexation. The city received a petition for voluntary annexation from a property owner in the county limits of Jefferson County, Missouri. That petition was submitted under the procedures of 71.012. That's the Missouri Revised Statute that gives the authority of municipal bodies to annex what's called contiguous and compact properties into the city limits of Crystal City. So that definition has actually been expanded over the years. You used to not be able to create island properties or flagpole annexations. That's actually broader. We don't have that issue in front of us this evening, though, because the property, as you'll see up on the screen here, is what's considered contiguous and compact. So the petition was received on March the 2nd, signed by Representative of Jeffco Port Development, LLC. If you look up on the screen here, you'll see that the property has been highlighted for you to show the acreage and the parcel ID number that is proposed for the annexation. So this is a bit of a different animal because it is a petition for voluntary annexation, meaning the property owner has requested to be included into the city limits of Crystal City. So it's not like we're taking anything or the city's forcing this. This was something that was voluntarily issued by the property owner himself or itself. Because it's under an LLC. So we have verified that the property owner is Jeffco Port Development, Inc. They are the entirety of the ownership interest in that property, which is required by statute. And the petition was submitted on what's called a verified petition, meaning that it was notarized and signed actually by the property owner itself as well to comply with the statute. So the petition, which is in your packet, you should have the petition, which is on the second page of your packet there. That's a complete petition that was filed with the council and the clerk. It's not grandiose because it is a voluntary petition. And then the property that is the title property, the deed to the property is the next page that was attached and submitted with that petition as well, because that has the legal description of the property that you would need for any kind of enabling ordinance as well. So that verifies that the property is in Jeffco Port Development, Inc.'s hands. We have no problems with the property being contiguous and compact to the city limits. The city limits up there on the screen, as you can see, are outlined in green. So anything that's not in green is not in the city limits. Anything that is in the city limits. The teal represents the property that's proposed to be annexed here. So it's a 53.24 acre piece of property. I will not read the parcel ID number for you because it is long and will drone on for quite some time, but it's shown up there on the board and was also in the petition itself. But that is the property that we're taking up here this evening. So you're required by statute to hold a public hearing within a certain period of time after receiving the petition for voluntary annexation. And that's what we're here for this evening, to comply with the statutes. So the very first page in your packet is actually the notice of the public hearing that was ran in the Jefferson County Leader on 2 different occasions, which it wasn't required to be done twice, but we did run it twice just to be safe. It ran on March 17th and March 24th, well in advance of the 7-day guideline that's set forth by the statutes. And that public hearing notice was actually posted down here at City Hall as well. Now, when you're looking at the standard for a petition for voluntary annexation, it is the same standard as a involuntarily annexation. Is it reasonable and necessary for the development of the city, and can the city provide and furnish normal municipal services within a reasonable period of time after the property is to be annexed into the city limits? So those are your standards. You got a question or just itching something? Okay. Okay, so that's kind of your guidelines on how to handle this evening. So this is a public hearing, so we'll treat it just like any regular, normal public hearing. So those are kind of my introductory remarks on behalf of the city. If the city has any questions for me, by all means, I'll try and guide this along. The first things first, though, is you'll hear from the petitioner, the applicant itself, who I believe will be represented by Will Mura this evening. At that time, Will get a chance to provide any testimony or evidence he has in support of the petition. And then once his portion closes, and you have any questions for him during that time as well, then the public will have an opportunity to talk as well. So we do have quite a crowded room this evening. So we do typically have limits on the public as far as time frames on what can be done, just so we can keep this orderly. I'm usually looking in between 3 to 5 minutes for any type of public comment. And if you are representing a group, we ask that at least just one representative of the group speaks on behalf of that group, so we don't have a bunch of redundancy in the public hearing this evening, though. So that's the way that we will typically handle those public hearings. So the council will not vote on anything this evening because you have a 14-day, I don't want to call it a grace period, but it's more like an objection period, where the public can actually send written objections to the city clerk on the proposed annexation. So in order to trigger those objection procedures, though, you have to have at least 5% of the voting populace in the city to trigger the objection procedures to go forward with the annexation. So if that has not been triggered, then after the 14-day period, the council can pass an ordinance approving or denying the annexation, and then that ordinance would be certified by the city clerk and sent out to the county clerk's office for recording and then actually incorporating it into the city limits. So that's kind of your process. That's the groundwork, the foundation for what we're going to do here this evening. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Yes.
Have we notified the adjacent property owners of the annexation? Is that a requirement?
There is not a requirement to do that on a voluntary annexation. In fact, the county is not even required to get notice, even though the property is actually located within the county, municipal area. So there is no requirement by statute that happen. The publishing in the paper is all that's required, unfortunately.
Okay.
Brandon, could you clarify, you said the objection requires 5% of the city.
Mm-hmm.
A number of the people that I see in the audience here are not actually residents of Crystal City. They're users of the airport facility, so how would that work?
So
anybody who objects needs to be a resident of Crystal City?
The statutory language says 5% of the qualified voters in the city to initiate the objection process. So
thank you.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to chill anyone's objections. They're certainly willing to submit their objections, but it
Sure.
can't be counted towards the statutory requirements, unfortunately, if we're going to use that standard, which we have to. I mean, it's a statutory standard, so I didn't make it up.
Okay.
So any other questions before we get going? No? Well, I think I covered everything on behalf of the city's perspective. I added a few more papers in your packet there. You'll see just a map like that that's just a closer up that has some information, and then the actual parcel detail list from the assessor's office is in there as well on the last couple pages of your packet there. So that just helps kind of get yourself oriented with the property that's seeking to be annexed here. So if the council doesn't have any further questions, I'll turn it over to the petitioner and Will Mura to make his presentation to the council. Will?
Thank you, council members and Mr. Mayor. I represent Jeffco Port Development, and my client is he's a property owner of multiple parcels within the city limits, and he's just looking to consolidate those parcels and what he owns under one governance of Crystal City. So it seems a pretty straightforward process, so just ask for approval. Thank you. Any questions?
What is your affiliation with the corporation?
So I represent them. I'm a commercial real estate broker here in Missouri, so I represent him from a real estate standpoint.
Okay.
All right, thank you. don't know that anything else is necessary.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
By all means, so Tom, now do you have opportunity for public comment?
Yes, we are open right now for public comment. Could you state your name, please, for the council, and
Good evening. My name is Alexander Bischoff, and I'm the president of a 501c3 nonprofit called Operation Savannah.
Mr. Bischoff, for the record too, could you just state your residential address too?
Yes, I'm at 884 Woodridge Drive. Arnold is my residential address. My office address is 900 Airport Road. And it is in my capacity as a person who has his office located at the airport, which I can confirm, and the president of the board is here. An official vote of the board was taken in July last year to grant me permission to work from there as my office for Operation Savannah. Mr. Mayor, we've spoken. Tony, we've spoken. Thank you. And council members, thank you for giving us this 3 to 5 minutes to present our position to you. As I said, I've been working at the office for 9 months as the president of a 501c3. Over the last 11 years, we have helped some 75,000 veterans dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, typically alcoholism. I have been sober for 23 years, and I share my experiences with others that they may get well. My particular work, though, which is why I chose the airport, is I deal with parents who've lost a child to cancer. I lost my daughter in 2014 to metastatic melanoma, and that is a very sad thing, and people sometimes need space to cry. And then the other thing I do is I served as a mercenary in the South African Army on behalf of the CIA. I have personally put a bullet through women and children. It is very sad, and I have permanent nightmares. I meet veterans who've come back from Afghanistan or Kuwait or the Gulf or covert operations, where they sometimes need to tell me about things that are still illegal in this country. My mission ended when the Soviet embassy collapsed in 1991, and I was allowed to speak fairly openly about the atrocities and depravities that we committed. So I can sit with somebody and actually hear them talk about things that just cannot go into the public domain. And I do that all in the name of faith. We are a faith-based ministry. We're registered as a charity and a church. And so I'm not here to make an argument about the airport. I'm here to say that it came to my attention, I was on the airport when some drilling was taking place, that what is actually happening here is Mr. Kennedy is planning to sell the 130 acres making up the airport property plus the property but being annexed here. It is my understanding that he has a potential buyer, and I think procedurally, as public, we probably have a right to know exactly what that buyer is planning to do. I understand that it is a building materials company. I found that out independently, not from this board. I actually was able to find it out independently. And I can completely understand Mr. Kennedy and anybody representing him's desire to want to sell the land. That is the way it works in this country. A landowner is allowed to sell the land, and I know Jefferson County has special regulations which actually go to involuntary annexation to make that extremely difficult to do. So I'm not going to dwell on the past. I don't think that's very helpful. We're meant to look forwards. And so I will mention in 1990, PPG closed. What I think was the light of the South went south. In 2020, I read that your population of the city has decreased from 4,855 to 4,646 residents, and that's largely, I believe, because of the schools and the lack of jobs in the community. I understand, Mr. Mayor, that you actually were traveling across to Illinois at times to get a job. That is impressive. And so in December 2021, when the PPG property in the port basically fell through because the Port Authority awarded the project to Herculaneum, I think the hopes that the city might have had for the PPG property to become a port in the short term were dashed. And I say that because it's interesting to me that the property owner is called Jeffco Port Development, Inc. I have to believe that companies name themselves for some purpose. And so it is my belief that Mr. Kennedy, when he bought the property, was in some way aligning himself with the Port Authority. I don't know much more than that. So what we've got now is the end of the port story. The port's going to be built. I actually am planning to write an article. I hope the reader might follow. It's called A Story of 5 Ports. And the one that came through, then there's the Kimswick Port, which is actually happening. And so now we move to air. I have spoken to authorities at the Port Authority, and they tell me that it is now in the county's interest to have an airport. This actually is the only county in the United States adjoining a major city that does not have an airport. And so I spoke to the authorities who said that the air part of the county's proposal is now starting to be investigated. And so there's really 2 choices. Number 1, the county has an airport. And if they have an airport, the personal property tax and the economic activity will all go to the county. It turns out, for those of you who are not pilots, that the federal government requires an airport to be 26 to 28 miles away from the nearest other federally supplied airport. Gentlemen, this airport here is 26 miles away from Farmington. It is the furthest possible airport away. If the county is going to build an airport, it will require a special federal dispensation to get federal monies to build your airport. What you are sitting on is a piece of prime real estate that could guarantee this city get $10 million to $20 million in federal monies to build the airport out. Now, I've heard it said that that might be a problem, that it needs to be 5,000 feet. Well, that was true 10 years ago. That's no longer true. 3,001. We could actually extend the airport on the existing land and make it highly effective and meet the insurance companies of most aircraft, some of them costing up to $2 million. Now, I believe $2 million with a personal property tax would be very attractive to the city rather than to the county. So what I did was I said the city has a choice. It can say to the Port Authority, no, we don't want an airport out in the county. We want it here. You've got it. You annexed it in 2008. And here's a list of things that I believe we could do for you. First of all, federal funds.
Mr. Bischoff, real quick, you're running on about 8 minutes right now. With the council's permission, I'll give you 3 more minutes.
That's very kind of you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
With federal funds, you would build offices and hangars where the current airport is, creating work and jobs for the county, for the city. With the 501c3 fund I have, I believe I could raise the money to build you a technology park in a joint venture with you. But it wouldn't be a for-profit venture, it would be a non-profit venture. It would be titled by the county, for the county, by the city, for the city. When are we going to stop letting large corporations come in and basically take all your employees, all your residents' money? We could have leasing come to you. We could have partnership with the Jefferson County University. You desperately need high opportunities for technology workers. We could have a recovery retreat. We could have an AMP school. We could have a battery school tech for all the new electric motors that are coming here. My own company is in the business of information scientists. We are going to need somewhere in the region of 120 to 180 employees over the next 7 years. They would be located here. And none of these people, Tesla, Uber, Bayer, Mercy, are going to come here if there isn't an airport. And so I put it to you really quite simply. You have a choice to make. It's a very difficult choice. Do you build a cement board manufacturing plant, which will come with some money? Or do you put Crystal City back into the light and become a 20th century opportunity for your children to leave school and come and get the kind of jobs that pay $120,000 and $140,000 and $160,000 a year, which is what my kind of world lives in. I know I come from outside, but I'm passionate about this. My nephew lives in Festus. He's got 3 kids. They are looking for you to have these kind of jobs in this kind of place. Thank you very much for my attention.
Thank you, sir.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Could you please, if you have that in some type of format that could be shared with the council, is there a way that you can email that to us?
Certainly, I'd be very willing. My ask of the council is in the next 14 days that you allow us and invite us to put a written proposal to you to put meat on the bone. But I have a whole team of people working with me who would love the opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on behalf? Council, you have any questions or anything? Not hearing none?
Are there not
Yes.
any property owners here? I guess there aren't. And
I have a question, and I thought a comment is more of a question, and I have that.
Yes, ma'am, sure.
I guess I'm just curious, between, like, this is all new to us, evidently in the turquoise up there is the airport property, so I'm picking up on.
The shaded area, ma'am, is the municipal boundaries of Crystal City. Right, Brandon?
The green is about the property that he's wanting to do the technology thing and mentioned something about the cement board manufacturing plant. Is that little turquoise box?
The whole thing. The turquoise box is what I want to annex in.
Correct, that's what I'm
Yes,
asking,
ma'am.
correct. So which one of these is, from my concern as a Crystal City resident, is what's going to be most beneficial to the city of Crystal City?
I assure you that's our concern as well.
Mr. Munier, you have anything?
No, Tom, the only thing I would caution the council is that the next 14-day period isn't for evidence to be submitted to the council. So I would caution you against opening yourselves up to you can read the documentation, you can have it in front of you, but just keep in mind that what's presented here this evening is your official record for making your decision, okay? Because the council cannot just open this period up for additional evidence to be brought in, or anybody to just bring in whatever they want. So that's what this hearing is for this evening. So if it can be provided in written format, that's completely fine, but it's not something that the council can necessarily use outside of this hearing to make a decision.
Okay, more, does that go to the city clerk?
It can.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it could go to the city clerk for determination on the council, but I just, again, that's.
Or I don't know if it went to you, that's my.
No, it wouldn't go to the
Go,
clerk.
if they've got something right.
Just to clarify though, Brandon, the city doesn't own this property. The city doesn't have any authority to direct what happens on this property. The question before the council is it reasonable and necessary for the growth of the city to annex this property, which was requested by the owner of the property, and can we get city services there in a reasonable amount of time?
That's the standard that you have in front of you. So what the proposed uses are doesn't necessarily come into the council's determination. Whether it's for a technology park or for a manufacturing plant, whatever it is, it's just, is this property necessary for the future growth and development of the city? And that would be your determination.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to add that, I appreciate Mr. Bischoff's passion on what he does, but today, all my client is asking is, he would like his property annexed into the city. Everything else is superfluous, that's the thing.
Anything else, Mr. Munier?
No, just one last round to make sure there's no other public comment.
No other public comment? If not,
I wouldn't mind, are we allowed to speak yet, or are you trying to cut out the public comment?
no, I'm not trying to cut off nothing. I wanna hear, you know.
Well, I just wanted to bring some additional information to it, I think that we can share. The petitioner is James Kennedy, and he's the, you may remember that name from around 2007 when he wanted to start a project here on the PPG property. And he has been acquiring property around here, including the, Bill Bradley's property behind us that goes all the way to the river. The property's out by the airport, as was referenced. I think there's at least 2 properties out there that he owns, under various corporation names. One is Wings Port Co., and I think the other one is just Port Co., or Jefferson Port Co., Jeffco Port Development. So, but they are James Kennedy's companies. So those names have been around since, I believe, about 2010, and I believe Mr. Bishop had the concern that maybe, you know, it had something to do with a port, and I think at that time, I think James Kennedy did believe that his corporations would have something to do with the port, but...
Yeah, I can say that I spoke to Mr. Kennedy, and he was extremely rude to me when somebody was drilling a core on the far side, and said that if I dared interfere with his people, he'd have me off the airport within 30 days. All I was trying to do was get a truck to not drive down the runway while the plane was on short finals, and to actually occupy the side road. And I had the presidents of ESTA who were doing the drillings, if you ever want to find him, who will attest to the fact that he hung up on Mr. Kennedy, who was extremely rude to me.
Mr. Mura, I just want to clear this up before we get too, well, we're already pretty deep in this, but as I was looking through the petition, I did notice that the property owner is Jeffco Port Development, Inc. On the petition, on one section, it says Jeffco Port Development, LLC. I'm assuming that's just
I think it was
error that needs to be to Jeffco
simple
Port
oversight,
Development.
yes.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Can I address the group just for a minute, please?
Sure.
I came up tonight, I wasn't gonna say anything, but I feel bad if I don't.
I think a few of us know you, but can you...
I fully understand Mr. King's position, and if I was in his position, that's Dr. Robert Borman. Actually, I was a resident of Crystal and have worked in the school district for a period of time, and have retired outside of Infestus. The airport, I guess, was one of the concerns I was having. I came to the meeting just wanting to know more information about what was transpiring, taking place, because we've heard a lot of rumors back and forth around, people coming and going and saying stuff, and I just like to know what's going on. If I was Mr. Kennedy and I owned that property, I'd be doing the same darn thing. You know, Mr. Kennedy does not fly or have a plane or have interest in the airport. We do, or I do, I guess, and that's one of my main concerns, to try to keep something in the county that provides access to transportation inside and outside. We have several different entities and companies down, or groups down that way that use the airport, and I would like to see at some time some interest be developed if there was a possibility of having an airport in the area, whether it's in the county or the city. The group that we have down there right now, since it is owned by Mr. Kennedy and a private owner, you're not eligible for federal funding for it, you know, and that's the kicker on the thing. A municipality, Festus or Crystal City or the county would be eligible to apply for those funds, but not under the circumstances it's owned by right now. And, you know, adopting that or taking that in, I would do it. I mean, I'm not yay or nay against it. I understand the position on that, and I know that, you know, for opportunities for Crystal City to have economic expansion and development and growth, and it's another opportunity for that to happen. And I can see that the potential being there. I just ask that sometime that maybe consideration, if in fact, and we have never been told it's not going to be an airport, we just heard innuendos and rumors. But to me, the opportunity for development other than an airport is very positive in his behalf. And I guess what I'm saying is I hope that the city would take a look at some site, some location or opportunity to develop or help support an airport in the county or in the city. Because I think that's, right now, I'm a volunteer down that way, kind of run things down that way, buy the fuel, rent the hangars, and to take care of all the stuff that needs to be done down there. It more than pays for itself, but we're all volunteer working down there.
when Festus had it, it was costing them money every year to maintain the airport down there. And, they had contracted out somebody to take care of the airport, and that was part of it. But it could be a very potentially profit opportunity for this location. It's the only place south of Class B or south of St. Louis that you don't have to call in to flight service or announce you're in their traffic area. And it's the cheapest fuel you can find is south of St. Louis also. So there's opportunities for growth and development. I know that an airport is very productive in bringing people in, traffic in, and businesses and entities in that may not otherwise use this location as a site preferable. But on the same token, on Mr. McKinney, we've worked out of there for 9 years and had the airport. There's not a hangar space. It's not rented down there, and we're very self-sufficient down that way. But we're on to get to Mr. Kennedy by being down there because he's had it 9 years. We've been month to month, no contracts and nothing substantiated on that. So the fuel master, the fuel tanks, the beacon, the lights, and the runway, and everything that gets done on that, we pull the money out of our pocket from the revenues we have, and we are very positive in the cash flow, and it is self-sufficient. So I guess what I'm asking is that if, in fact, whatever decision the board makes, I'd support it. I understand both sides of it. If I was Mr. Kennedy or you in the council, I know how I'd vote too. But on the same token, you're supporting the community and the city and the opportunity for growth and development, and I know that's important because I know in a school district where our funds used to come from, and it's you gotta have people working, and the commercial tax rate is much different than a residential or agricultural, and having something in the city limits or in the annexation would be profitable to the district too. I just ask at some time that whatever happens, if it could be an airport, I don't know, but if it doesn't, we have sometime maybe consider a location or someplace that might be available to be able to put an airport in. So I appreciate your time, and my 3 minutes is probably up.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Anybody else? Anything? Brandon, do you have anything? Mr. Munier?
No, Mayor, just speak for the council, have any questions at this point in time for those of you addressed, and then if there aren't any more of those, Mayor, then we convene the public hearing, and then our 14-day period for objections would be open.
Anybody else on the council have anything?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I appreciate the level of interest, and I wish we had an audience for most of our council meetings like this. So thanks for coming out.
That. Yes, sir. If not, I will declare this public hearing closed. We'll go right on into, does the council need to take a break or anything? Yes. Before we go into our regular meeting? Yes, sir. call the regular council meeting to order. Council meeting for March 28, 2022, at approximately 6:37 is now in session. Would everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance to the flag led by Councilperson Ginever? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll take the roll call. Councilperson Ginever? Here. Councilperson Schonberg? Councilperson Becker?
I'm here, Your Honor.
Councilperson Fisher? Here, Your Honor. Councilperson Bradley? Absent. Councilperson Massa? And Councilperson Osher? And Councilperson Picarella. I'll entertain a motion for, for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Madam Clerk, has this agenda been posted, dated, signed, and/or initialed? Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes of February 28, 2022?
I'll move to approve the minutes from February 28th.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. At this time, I would like to present a proclamation to Clayton Lowry. Would you come forward, young man? I'd like to present a proclamation to, whereas Clayton C. Lowry was born on July 5th, 2005, and is currently 16 years old. And whereas Clayton goes to St. Pius High School and is currently in the 11th grade, and he is an ambassador for his school. Clayton has been on the honor roll every semester in high school. Clayton is active in theater and has been active since he was 6 years old. And whereas Clayton is a Boy Scout, and in October of 2021, Clayton reached the highest honor of Eagle Scout. Clayton is with Troop 484, Knights of Columbus, Festus, Missouri. Clayton has been nominated for Boy State Program. And whereas Clayton loves local history and the Crystal City Historic Society, Clayton did a documentary about Pittsburgh Plate Glass Plant and its workers. And whereas Clayton is a great young man and is always willing to lend a hand to anyone. Now therefore be it resolved, I do hereby declare that I, Thomas V. Shilley, Mayor of the City of Crystal City, Missouri, do hereby proclaim March 28, 2022, Clayton C. Lowry Day. Congratulations.
Mayor, where could one, view that documentary? I'd be interested in seeing that.
It's on,
Is
it's
it?
on the website, yes.
Okay, good deal.
I've looked at it quite a few times.
Yeah, I've got a couple of stories I'd like to share, if you don't mind. They'll be quick. So we had an open house at the Historical Society, I think, just a couple weekends ago. And, there was two people that came in, one guy that lives up on 8th Street, and I believe about Jefferson or so. He was talking about how, you know, he was renovating his house, and he wanted to know more about his house, so he was asking us. Clayton asked me, so well, why don't you go home, and why don't you look on the second floor and see if there's any wood in there that says PPG, because a lot of those houses around there had PPG stuff used from the pallets that they had from the PPG property, you know, just the old pallets that they just let the people have to help build their houses. He went back home, and about 15 minutes later, he's gonna show a picture of it here, too. And I'll be darned if he didn't come back with a picture of PPG Industries in his attic. That, that's just one of the stories. So the other story is... The other story is, Herman Meyer came by. Now, Herman Meyer retired from PPG in 1991, I believe, 1990 or 1991. One of the last people to work for PPG. And, he's 94 years old, walked into the Historical Society and just said, you know, how you doing? Started talking about how they cut the glass in the PPG, you know, how they cut the glass in making glass. Clayton got up and said, "Did you use one of these?" He pulled it right out of the glass case. It was a glass cutting tool, and Herman sat there and said, "Yeah, and here's how you did it." And then you know, and Clayton was right along every step of the way. He said, "Yeah, and when you did that, you do this." And then Herman said, "Yeah, and then you put it in here." And then so for being 16 years old, he got a fountain of knowledge about the history of Bristol City. So.
Yes, he does. And I do recall that, when I was a young man, we lived over here on, Lindsay Avenue, 303 Lindsay, matter of fact, but, the house is still there, but now it's 305, because they moved some apartments and everything there. But at any rate, Clayton's family, mother, when they lived there, and when we all lived there, she brought me over, this has been about, 10, 15 years ago, she brought me over some pictures of my brothers and my sisters, and myself, when we was all in the Catholic school over there. I guess they felt down behind the cabinets or something. Right. And when they put new cabinets in, they found the pictures and they returned them to me. So I really appreciated it. I couldn't, I really couldn't get over it, because, brought back a lot of memories. We'll go on to, public comment. We have none. Check register and bills, financial reports, Councilperson Becker.
I'll move to approve the check register and bills and the revenue and expenditure report as presented.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Do
Opposed?
they seem to be, they're not in the packet. I've seen a copy of it that was emailed to me, but... I don't think any of it's in here, is it?
Yeah.
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 Anyway, excuse me for interrupting the vote. Go ahead.
That's okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Committee reports, water...
Mayor, there's one
Yes.
other thing on here. Jason, do you have a text of
Oh,
the
yes.
motion that needs to be made, or can I just wing it?
It's on there, isn't it?
I didn't see it because it's not, I don't think the financial stuff is in here.
Yeah, we need a motion to allow...
Yeah, where's it at?
Right there on the bottom of the agenda.
Yeah, but that's it? Okay. Mayor, annually, at this time, because the state requires us to have a balanced, budget that coincides with our actual expenses, we need to make a motion, and I will make that motion, to allow the city administrator and the finance director to make the necessary budget adjustments for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022, including cashing in a couple of our CDs if necessary to make sure that we have a positive cash balance in all our accounts as of that date. There's plenty of money there, but due to the timing of various payments, that we may need to cash something in.
I'll second. The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Committee reports, Water Committee, Councilperson Picarella?
I don't have anything.
Public Welfare and Fire, Councilperson Fisher?
We had, 4 fire practices, 19 total calls, 1 alarm sounding, 2 vehicle accidents, 1 idle fire, 7 mutual aids to Festus, 4 to J-Pad, 2 to R7, and 1 to Impact. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hayden Reynolds, one other thing, Hayden Reynolds was accepted into the Fire 1 and 2 classes. Is Hayden here?
No.
Okay.
No. Very good, thank you, sir. Building Commissioner, Mr. Eisenbach, do you have anything on the Building Commissioner? Police Department, Councilperson Schonberg.
I do not have anything, sir, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
How are you tonight?
Fine, thank you, sir.
If I could take, I guess that 3-minute time frame real quick, try to keep it to 3 minutes. Stand before you tonight. Number one is your report is in your packet if anybody has any questions. The reason I am at the podium, though, I wanted to have Captain Perino step up and Patrolman Jack Montgomery. We often have men and women in the police field doing some good stuff. It's pretty often. Last week, as an example, we had one of our patrolmen in the wee hours of the morning assist out on the highway in a large vehicle pursuit. He was able to deploy spikes and slow down a suspect vehicle that's wanted in connection with burglaries, shooting at suspects in Cape County. It was a stolen vehicle, and it was in connection with a homicide, is my understanding.
Excuse me, Chief, is your microphone on? I want to make sure everybody hears this.
I believe it is. I believe it is. So that was last week as just an example of some things that a lot of times, it did make some news, but a lot of times that stuff goes unseen. So there's always things going on and always positive things, good things. But tonight, I asked Jack Montgomery to come here. Step up here, don't be shy. So I asked him to come, and the reason I did was I received a letter from Sergeant Kyle Boyer recently. He's in the back corner back here. And it was recognizing Patrolman Montgomery for his actions. That was on March 4th. Shortly thereafter, I received a letter, which I believe that's in your packet, from one of the head JPAD commanders over there, Ken Stratham. And he was talking about the actions of Mr. Montgomery. And then I received a third letter from the Festus Chief of Police. And I think probably after doing this, if you don't mind, I'll just take just a second to read the Chief of Police's letter from Festus, because I think it kind of sums it up. I couldn't have said it much better myself. I want to thank Patrolman Montgomery for his assistance on a traffic accident on March 4th. He assisted Festus officers with a horrific traffic accident on I-55 near A Highway. A motorist lost control of his truck, struck a parked van, a tractor trailer, and then rolled over several times. The driver was partially ejected from the truck and had a severe semi-severance of his left arm and was bleeding profusely. Patrolman Montgomery, along with Patrolman Davis of the Festus Police Department, began life-saving treatment on the victim by placing a tourniquet on his left arm to stem the loss of blood. I had been contacted by Deputy Chief Ken Strathman of JPAD, who said this statement saved the man's life. He was contacted by Barnes Hospital, who advised him without the officer's treatment, the patient would not have made it to the hospital. Both said they were amazed the officers were able to get a tourniquet on that type of injury the victim had sustained. Please advise him of our gratitude for a job well done. He is an asset to the Crystal City. He is an asset to Crystal City, and you can be proud of how he represents the department. We kind of have a joke, not that it's funny, but Jack seems to find a lot of serious incidents in his early career. If you remember, I think it was June of last year, he also received a life-saving award. So tonight, after receiving 3 letters, Mike and I have talked about it as a captain of police, and he qualifies for a second life-saving award. It's a very distinct honor, and you've heard me say it before, I love recognizing the actions of people of this city and the policemen, and he's very worthy of it. Jack's a good policeman, and he does a lot of outstanding things, and he works real hard. He continually tries to get better, and I want to tell him I appreciate it, and I thank him for his actions, and I felt that I needed to recognize him tonight, and I think Captain Perino has another life-saving award, which he's going to put in his hand. If there are no questions, I thank you for your time.
I don't believe there's an agenda for next month's meeting, and the conditional use permit is under new business down below.
Councilperson Ginevra.
I don't have anything.
Commission, Councilperson Schonberg.
I don't have anything, sir.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak of something that was, goes back to the February 28th meeting? If not, I'll move on to old business. We have none. New business, Planning and Zoning Commission letter to the council for conditional use permit from U.S. Central and Southern Providence Society of Jesus, number 10, Rivermont. That is in your packet.
Mayor, can I speak on that?
Yes,
for a
sir,
moment?
please.
As the mayor said, the letter's in your packet. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend the conditional use permit for approval. The short version is the Jesuits bought a house that they want to use as a retreat. My understanding is that they occasionally might need a day or two away from their students to have a barbecue and sit out by the pool or something. All of the surrounding property owners were in favor of it, and the Planning and Zoning did not see an issue.
If I may, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody?
Anybody got any questions?
What's the conditional, is there anything special in the conditional use permit?
To use it other than a single-family residence requires a use permit.
Okay, but there's no,
No set conditions on it.
no other conditions, right?
No.
Okay.
I think the permit, when it's issued, will be to use it as a private recreational facility or private club for members in good standing.
They have to be in bed by 10?
Long before that.
And I did ask Brandon this was my understanding when we discussed it at P&Z, but that permit would be issued and would run with the land. If the property is sold to somebody else at some point in the future, it could be used by somebody else for that same purpose.
Right. If not, any other discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the conditional use permit.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Next thing on the agenda is ordinance and resolutions. We have we have Bill 1866, 2022.
I'll move to read Bill 1866-2022 on its first reading by title only.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Madam Clerk, could we have the first reading of Bill number 1866, 2022 by title only, please?
Bill number 1866-2022 on...
Ma'am, speak up there, please.
Bill number 1866-2022 on its first reading by title only, an ordinance to appropriate $9,738,000 $67 out of all funds of the City of Crystal City, Missouri to cover the annual budget of all expenditures for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2023.
I'll move to approve Bill 1866-2022 on its first reading.
Second. The motion been made and seconded to approve Bill 1866-2022 on its first reading. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I did have a couple of comments I'd like to make.
Yes, sir?
I know that putting our budget together is always a balancing act, and Jason's made the comment that this year was tighter than most. I do think that even though we can't do it now, because frankly, I don't know where the money would come from, I think we do need to seriously consider implementing Chief Helms's proposal for increasing police pay to a level that is competitive with the surrounding communities, because if we don't do that, we're going to continue to lose highly qualified officers. There was a resignation letter in your packet, which we did not discuss this evening, and one of the things that I think makes Crystal City a special place to live is the extremely high quality of our police department and the level of service that they provide to us, and I would hate to lose that. But, being that as it may, at this time, I don't think the money is there to implement that, but I think I want the council to be ready to come back and reconsider that if and when the funds become available. That's all I had to say.
No, we need to
We
go
need to do it
twice.
twice because the budget year will be rollover
Right.
before our next meeting. And we didn't get a vote. There's a motion and a second.
There's a motion. Who made the motion?
I did.
And David, you seconded it. Okay. The motion been made and seconded to accept Bill 1866-2022 on its first reading by title only. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
I'll move to read Bill 1866-2022 on its second reading by title only.
The motion been made and seconded to read Bill 1866-2022 by title only on its second reading, final reading. All in, any other comments, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Madam Clerk, we have the second and final reading, please.
Bill number 1866-2022 on its second and final reading by title only. An ordinance to appropriate $9,738,067 out of all funds of the City of Crystal City, Missouri to cover the annual budget of all expenditures for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2023.
I'll move to approve Bill 1866-2022 on its second and final reading.
Second. The motion been made and seconded to approve Bill 1866 on its second and final reading. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. I will poll the council. Councilperson Massa? Councilperson Pickerel?
Yes.
Councilperson Schonberg?
Yes.
Councilperson Fisher?
Yes.
Councilperson Becker?
Yes.
Councilperson Ginever?
Yes.
Councilperson Osher?
Yes.
Bill number 1866-2022 now becomes ordinance 1866-2022. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
The next one we have is bill number 1867-2022, the salary contract.
I'll move to read Bill 1867-2022 on its first reading by title only.
The motion been made and seconded to read bill 1867-2022 by title only on its first reading. Any further discussion?
Just one thing, Jason, the changes to it are highlighted?
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Madam Clerk, we have the first reading, please, by title only.
Bill number 1867-2022 on its first reading by title only. An ordinance establishing rules, regulating salaries, vacations, paid holidays, overtime pay, and other benefits for certain salaried employees within the city of Crystal City, Missouri, repealing any other ordinances and setting the effective date of this ordinance.
Move to accept Bill 1867-2022 on its first reading.
Second. The motion been made and seconded to accept Bill 1867-2022 on its first reading by title only. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
I'll move to read Bill 1867-2022 on its second reading by title only.
The motion been made and seconded to read Bill 1867-2022 on its second and final reading by title only. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Madam Clerk, we have the second and final reading, please, by title only.
Bill number 1867-2022 on its second and final reading by title only, 2022-2023 salary contract. An ordinance establishing rules, regulating salaries, vacations, paid holidays, overtime pay, and other benefits for certain salaried employees within the city of Crystal City, Missouri, repealing any other ordinances and setting the effective date of this ordinance.
I'll move to accept Bill 1867-2022 on its second and final reading.
I'll second. The motion been made and seconded to accept Bill 1867-2022 on its second and final reading. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. I'll poll the council. Councilperson Osher?
Yes.
Councilperson Ginever?
Yes.
Councilperson Becker?
Yes.
Councilperson Fisher?
Yes.
Councilperson Schonberg?
Yes.
Councilperson Piccarello?
Yes.
Councilperson Massa? And Bill 1867-2022 now becomes ordinance 1867-2022. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
The next one we have is ordinance 1868-2020, bill number 1868-2022, the union contract.
I'll move to read Bill 1868-2022 on its first reading by title only.
Second. The motion been made and seconded to read Bill 1868-2022 on its first reading by title only. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Madam Clerk, we have the first reading, please.
Bill number 1868-2022 on its second and final reading, first reading by title only, 2022-23 union contract, an ordinance establishing rules, regulations, salaries, and hourly rates of pay, emergency pay and sick leave for certain employees of the city of Crystal City, Missouri, and repealing prior ordinances in which are in direct conflict with this ordinance and any amendments thereto.
I'll move to accept Bill 1868-2022 on its first reading.
Second. The motion been made and seconded to accept Bill 1868-2022 on its first reading by title only. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
I'll move to read Bill 1868-2022 on its second and final reading by title only.
Second.
The motion been made and seconded to read Bill 1868-2022 by title only on its second and final reading. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Madam Clerk, we have the second and final reading, please.
Bill number 1868-2022 on its second and final reading by title only, the 2022-23 union contract. An ordinance establishing rules, regulations, salaries, and hourly rates of pay, emergency pay, and sick leave for certain employees of the city of Crystal City, Missouri, and repealing prior ordinances in which are in direct conflict with this ordinance and any amendments thereto.
I'll move to accept Bill 1868-2022 on its second and final reading.
I'll second. The motion been made and seconded to accept Bill 1868-2022 on its second and final reading. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Poll the council. Councilperson Massa? Councilperson Piccarello? Councilperson Schonberg? Councilperson Fisher? Councilperson Becker?
Yes.
Councilperson Ginever? Councilperson Osher? And Bill 1868-2022 now becomes Ordinance 1868-2022. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
The next thing on the agenda is the City Administrator's Report. You have one, in your packet or on hand. If anybody's got any questions for our City Administrator? If not, I'll move on to the Mayor's Report. I am pleased to announce that this past Saturday, I give Miss Ruthie Benz a 100-year birthday proclamation. Mrs. Benz, her late husband, Mr. Clifford Benz, was the mayor here of Crystal City in 1986 to 1994, and myself and I think Mr. Cherry both served 8 years under his regime. He was a good man. She's sharp as a tack. Looked just as healthy as I was, and it was a joy and a pleasure to be able to give her that 100-year birthday proclamation. And it just so happens that in my 20 years as mayor, this one here happened to be the 20th 100-year birthday proclamation that I've issued throughout this area. So it's been very joyous to me to do that for these people. But I do have to tell you this one quick story, that it wasn't so much Mrs. Benz didn't tell me this, but I always have to ask the question, what enables an individual the longevity that they have to reach the 100th birthday? And I had this one lady tell me, she looked me up and down my frame, and she said, well, it's been about 10 years ago. She said, I'll guarantee you one thing, young fellow, you better drop 50 pounds real quick. So, her family just kind of, they went off the deep end. I said, look, in my book, when you're 102 years old, you got the right to say what you want to, so, but I just had to pass that on. Other than that, I'll go to the round table. Councilperson Massa? Councilperson Picarella?
I don't have anything.
Councilperson Schonberg?
Congratulations to Jorge, they won the baseball game today.
Hey, all right.
That's all I got.
Councilperson Fisher?
I'd just like to second Tony's comment. We have a stellar police force, and when we can do something, we should.
I will 100% agree.
Yeah.
And, and hopefully here in the future, things will break loose, things will start happening, get some revenue in, so as we can take care of the police department and the balance of the workers, street department, water department, all departments, because they all are very deserving of a raise, that's for sure. Anything else, Mr. Fisher?
That's all I have.
Councilperson Becker?
While we're on the subject of revenue, I'd like to remind everybody that Proposition U is on the ballot for Crystal City next week at the election. I'd like to encourage everybody to get out and vote. And if any council people are willing to walk around and hand out some informational flyers, please see me after the meeting. That's all. Thanks.
Councilperson Ginever?
Just one thing about the Great Streets Initiative. So Jason in his report says that it's going along very well, and that there's probably going to be some final open house dates in mid-May or June.
They're still trying to finalize all that.
Okay. Yeah, if you didn't go to it, it's really worth it to go and see at least the last open houses that they're going to have, because they have some really interesting plans that I advocate. There's a lot of green space along the main streets that we have between Festus and Crystal, so I believe that's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Osher?
No, sir.
Chief Helms?
No, sir.
Captain Bruno? Mr. Eisenbeis? Madam Clerk? Mr. Cherry? Oh. Thank you. Thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. We are adjourned.